I watch a lot of Christian versus atheist videos on YouTube, and it all seems to be based around this misunderstanding of what God is, and like what it's just like two groups of people talking over each other over what they conceive God as, what they it's what they think reality or life or existence should be, which can be pretty futile and meaningless to talk about in the way they talk about it, because reality isn't something that you place a should on. Like, it isn't something that you should have expectations for, because it always just is. It doesn't make sense that you should try to prescribe what reality or life or existence is, because there's so much out there. There's so much like, also even inside of you, but there's so much around, there's so much going on that just eludes definition. And this is where I think the problem with like the scientific materialist view comes in, is that they want to define everything. The people who are these like literalist, atheist, scientific materialist type thinkers, they want to try to define everything in relation to some sort of central meaning. They want to say, well, like, this is an object that has this sort of value, like this codified value, and it has this concrete relation to this other set of objects, which all exist in this static model. But that's not really whatever model you can create of reality is going to be it's going to be a simplification of something that exists as an image in your own mind. So it's always going to leave out so much, and it's always going to it's always just going to be like what you think, and you're always going to try to manipulate your own way of thinking, your own like epistemological sort of like method to confirm what you think prior to what you actually seek out to try to determine how things are. So you're always just going to end up at the same conclusion, and then you think that you're creating new insights, but you're just affirming a previously held conception. This is the problem, like, I see in myself, really. But I think it's true of a lot of the way science is done. Not that like research in like biology or physics or astrophysics can't come up with new insights. I think there's a lot of useful research being done in science, but like when you try to apply science to philosophy, when you try to say that, well, because like philosophy can be very broad and very vague, and it can be very intuitive, but then you try to apply a rigid, logical, positivist approach to philosophy, and then you don't question that logical positivism. You think that the logic of it makes it necessary, but you don't ever try to unravel the underpinnings of what makes you create your own logical assertions. And it's very frustrating because like I'm someone who's trying to leave the Christian worldview, and it has to do more with like a personal and psychological sort of like dissonance that I'm experiencing. But all the people who want to talk about religion want to come through it with this logic based like, well, these are the facts, so like these are concrete facts that have concrete like objective values, and they all have this particular meaning, but it's like this decisive sort of it's pre-concluded, but it's like it's this decisive kind of like, it's like a necessary, they say it's like this is the necessary like steps you take in your logic, and it's just all very like, it's all very strict, it's all very like decisive, but there's not that much room for interpretation. It's not like reading literature, and it's fine to like unpack how like religion might be not logical, but like it's just like the assertion that it has to be logical doesn't, like, logic isn't what the universe is made of. Logic isn't what life consists of. It's not, logic isn't going to give you a positive qualitative value for living your life. So yeah, it's just like, it just gets very frustrating when like you want to look for answers outside of what you've always been taught, when you want to look for significance in something other than believing in Jesus or faith or religion, and then all these people just want to give you, well, here's this like sterile like cleanse, like it's like a clean, like, you know, clean, but like in a negative connotation of something being clean, like it's sterile. Here's this lifeless sort of logic that like, here's what we know, like this is what we know, this is what reality is, and it's just this logic, and there's nothing life-giving in it. So yeah, I think that I think with all that being said, because like I came out here, I was thinking about how the atheist and Christian debates, it's just like it's just two groups of people talking over each other. And so like the atheists have this logical positivist approach, or this scientific materialist approach, which doesn't really have like that much depth to it, and it doesn't really have any life to it. So I would say, you know, the other problem with like the Christians is that like they're doing, like, really ever since the Protestant Reformation, but I would say since the Enlightenment, like the huge error that has been making is that we've tried to export the value that's inside ourselves to somewhere outside ourselves that doesn't exist. Because basically, you know, like the Christian fundamentalist perspective that you see a lot, I think it is in Catholic churches, but it's in a lot of like these Baptist, like evangelical churches and charismatic churches. It's a lot in like the Protestant churches. Like they take the Bible literally, and it's all literal, and it's all something you should take very seriously. And everything that life can be about or should be about has to somehow relate to Jesus, or a lesson you derive from the Bible, or God, portrayed in the Christian sense, which that's just not true. There's just like nothing. It's not that there's nothing true about it. It's just there's just no truth in that. You know, it leaves so much out of like the mystery of life. It's such like a narrow view of life. Like, I've lived it, and yeah, it just doesn't, I don't know, it just, like, the biblical literalism, it doesn't serve anyone either. Um, I would say that, like, before I decided to, like, abandon Jesus, so to speak, um, like, I was growing as a person. I was relating the Spirit to my life through, but it was through a Christian lens, and I just felt like I had to get rid of that Christian lens. But um, yeah, the other thing I was gonna say about this Christian ideology, or this Christian thought process, is that both, the Christian, the atheist process, it's underneath the belief of what happened during the Enlightenment, or like after the Enlightenment, which is that we try to say that everything was external and everything was concrete and everything was objective. But that's like really a huge misunderstanding, because really, if you're looking for God, if you're looking for meaning, it's all inside of you. So God is inside of you. The cosmos are inside of you. That's the really important thing. Like, there's all these debates over what God is, over what the meaning of life is, how we should orient ourselves, how we should value morality or ethics. But you are inside of yourself. Like, your values live inside of you. The forces of your emotions live inside of you, and like what constitutes all that lives inside of you. But like, really, everything that you experience, you're experiencing inside of yourself. So there's no outside. There's no, like, people say, well, there's a difference between the microcosm and the macrocosm. Like, this physical universe we experience is a microcosm of the things outside. But I'm not entirely convinced that there is a macrocosm that's outside of us. Like, I'm not entirely convinced of that. Like, I think it could be all inside. I think it all is inside. And your life experience will change as you learn to align with the different aspects of your subconscious mind that you actually value. So it's about like integrating yourself, integrating, I guess, you could say, like, what you know deep down with what you want, not trying to bend the laws of nature to your desire or to your whim, because really there are laws to this universe, which are, like, they're also the laws of how your soul operates, how things work, how things, I don't know, like in like the Kabbalion or whatever it's called, like there's like law of gender, law of like mentalism, all this stuff. So, relating like your individual person to the universe. So like the microcosm, macrocosm, again, like there's laws that govern how those two like entities, so to speak, like interact, like you and everything else. But yeah, like, it's really about, like, I know in myself, like, I'm trying to align like my thoughts with my emotions, so that my emotions aren't all contradicting what I value and what I think. But every person is here to work on themselves, to try to discover what work they have to do on themselves to align to their own inner true nature, and how to best go about that. So yeah, that's all I have to say.